Thank you, Marikar. I think as Asian American women, we can all relate to that story of feeling invisible and gritting our teeth through the sideways comments and the stereotypes. And I feel like for the first time, a lot of people are really seeing us for the first time. And I hope that this is a learning moment, not just for us as Asian Americans, but also for those and how they see Asian Americans. And it's been a powerful experience, I think, for a lot of us as Asian Americans to see so many people come out and stand in solidarity with us. And I hope that we as Asian Americans continue to stand in solidarity with Black lives, immigrant communities, and everybody else. And, we're so fortunate to have some strong faith leaders that are really social justice oriented, who have reached out to us as an Asian American community and said, what can we do to help? How can we stand with you? And particularly want to thank Pastor Neighbors for being that person to reach out and stand with us here today. Pastor Neighbors.
Thank you so much, Josina, and to all of you. We are proud and grateful to stand with the Asian American community in Evanston. On behalf of the Evanston clergy and also the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the Evanston North Shore chapter, we are grateful for this imperative call to stand with our brothers and sisters. Both my heart and my rage goes out to my brothers and sisters in the Asian community throughout our nation. The incredible hatred that has been directed towards them is reprehensible, it is vile, and it is eerily malevolent. And it did not begin 8 days ago. 8 days ago, a demented, deranged, racist lunatic opened fire at spas in northwest Atlanta and northeastern Atlanta. He's being held in Cherokee County on 4 counts of murder and 1 count of aggravated assault. He is also facing 4 counts of murder in Atlanta. While the pundits are undecided on whether to classify these murders as racially motivated, it is evident to so many that Long is both a racist and sexist. Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms acknowledged most victims were Asian. She publicly shared violence against Asian Americans is an issue that's happening around the country. It is unacceptable, it is hateful, and it must stop. 4 of the 6 Asian victims were of Korean ethnicity. The United States has a wicked history related to hatred and racism aimed at Asians. In 1882, President Chester A. Arthur signed into federal law the Chinese Exclusion Act. It prevented all members of a specific ethnic group, the Chinese, from immigrating to the United States. It was racist to the core and became a major pillar in building a foundation of hatred, stereotypes, and discrimination. A spirit of anti-Chinese American sentiment forced Chinese communities to flee to other areas. More familiar to most of us was the Japanese Relocation Act of 1942, signed by President Franklin D. Roosevelt. This act authorized the Secretary of War to prescribe areas as military zones, which allowed for the incarceration of Japanese Americans during the war. The entire West Coast became a military zone as thousands of Japanese families were forced from their homes and placed in concentration camps. Most families who were detained lost their life savings, homes, and other possessions. Call it for what it is. It is racism. And to our Asian American brothers and sisters, our Native American brothers and sisters, our Latinx brothers and sisters, and Black people out of the African diaspora, you who have been people of color, who have been savagely treated, despised, hated, brutalized, and often killed by Anglo-Saxons of European descent. This is sickness. This is evil. This is sin, and goes against the very nature of the divine, however you choose to call him or her. This attitude and action turned into policy and law is an erroneous and spurious notion that whites believe they are superior to all other races and ethnicities. Nothing could be further from the truth. One cannot help but trace the Atlanta murders to a former president who egregiously stoked the fires of racism by calling COVID-19 the China virus. Acts of brutality and violence against Asian Americans are also stoked by this mentality. It is again sinful and evil. I am asking all people in Evanston to join me in condemning the anti-Asian sentiment evoked by this false white superiority. Let us lock arms with Asian Americans in our neighborhoods and towns. Let us stand with them and vow to protect them. All life is diminished when one life is disrespected. Humanity is at risk when the innocent become victims of insane hatred. Together, we confront this latest scourge on our nation, just as we continue to confront racism, anti-Semitism, homophobia, sexism, and all forms of discrimination. It may occur in other places, but here in Evanston, it will not happen because we are here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pastor Neighbors. You know, I think we oftentimes think of racism as these really extreme acts like the murders that we saw a few weeks ago. And, you know, I hope that people see that it is these subtle, more insidious forms of racism that also are the part of that sickness that you talk about, and that we have to be incredibly vigilant in not just reacting when there's extreme acts of violence, but to stand and choose to be actively anti-racist every day and not let those comments slide. I think, if anything, these last weeks have taught us is that silence really does produce violence. And we have seen it firsthand in these last few weeks.